Hi, this is CJ, and this is 316 Seconds. Let's go. Today, let's talk about something that I think is very important to us as people, as believers, and as human beings in general. And it's kind of tightly linked to this channel. So we began 316 Seconds a while ago. We kind of went off air and we returned. And since the return of the channel, we've tried to stay consistent. I will be the first to own up and say it hasn't been easy. There are days I wake up Mondays and I'm like, oh God, it's Monday. And I'm like, oh, you have to have content available. You have to get something ready because there's people out there that you're required and mandated to minister to. But this is where things get a bit interesting. And this will kind of come back to what today's topic is about. And so sometimes on Mondays we get the more generous numbers in the views. And some other Mondays the numbers are in the low tens. We've had 3-4 views and all of that. And it's begun to teach me something that I hope will be a life lesson for every one of us. And that is, how do we measure success? What is our definition of success? In this world of social media and YouTube influencers and people of that sort, it's very easy to get confused and consider success to mean you have a good following, you have a large number of subscribers and all those fun things, which by the way are good. But recently, God has been rerouting my thought process to let me see that his metric for judging success is quite different from what the world will consider success. The book of Mark chapter 8 verse 36 asks a very profound question. It says, what shall it profit a man to gain the world, that in the end lose his soul? So while the world might consider you having gained all of these things as success, your soul might just have been lost in the process. And so God has been rerouting my thought process. He's been helping me see what in this particular task is success. And in doing that, he has taken me to the book of Isaiah chapter 1 verse 19. I think if you've been in church for a couple of years, you might have heard this verse of scripture. It's pretty popular. And it says, if you're willing and obedient, then you shall eat the good of the land. And so I began to ask God, what does this mean in reference to this particular task, and by extension, every other task that I may face or my brothers or sisters might encounter? And God said there are two components that make the good of the land available to us. And one of them is willingness. And so I went to the dictionary, as all smart students shall be, to look up the meaning of the word willing. And there are a bunch of synonyms that we know will sound familiar. We have ready, we have eager. But something struck me, and that was the phrase that willing should be likened to being prepared to do something. And so God told me that his metric of success for what he has asked me to do is my preparation to do it, and not the people who show up to listen. And by the way, let me say this right now. I have learned the value of being able to speak to one single person. If only one person tunes in every week, God knows from my heart I am so grateful, because that's one person, that's one life, that's one trajectory that God has offered me a privilege of being able to speak to. So back to what I was speaking about, being prepared to do something. God is concerned and interested in our preparation before the main event. Remember the story of the shepherd boy David? David's big moment wasn't when he faced Goliath. It was all the times he was in the wilderness, all by himself, getting prepared for what people will call an overnight success on the battlefields against a giant from Philistine. Many of us fail to get prepared because we are discouraged that there is no audience in our preparatory phases. There is no claps, there is no shares, there is no applause. But God says that if you will prepare under my guidance, if you will prepare under my watchful eyes. Then you can show your willingness, and then you can be ready for the next stage that God has in mind for each and every single one of us. The second requirement after being prepared and being willing is obedience. And so again, I went back to the dictionary, and it says, I love this one. It says being submissive to another's will. You know, very often we wake up, as I wake up as 316 seconds, and I'm not feeling like doing it. But it's being able to subject my personal agenda to God's desire for this word to be put out there. And so God says, while the world may call you low in terms of what might be considered impact, that you're doing the right things. And so I want to encourage everybody, every single man, woman, boy or girl who's listening to this. God is not rewarding you for the applause or for the commentary or for the accolades or for the trophies that this world has to offer. What God rewards is obedience and willingness. Many of us want to get to eat the good of the land, but we don't want to be willing or obedient. Those two things require a process, and that is really why God has given us His Spirit, that we might be processed into being everything that He wants us to be. So this is my earnest prayer for everyone listening to today's session, that you and I will be willing and we shall be obedient, and then we can feast on the good of the land.